a lot of positive things for us in the kicking game and defensively. Has some versatility. We were kind of trying to figure that out early. What his best spot would be, and it took a little while for all that to materialize. He was inactive, part of the year, and but he's definitely going to help us. He's a good football player, and we'll be able to define his role and his situation much better next year. After a year of experience with him, so looking forward to that. But he's definitely going to be an asset for us. And if he continues to work and improve, he's got a good future.
And then one question just related to Sunday's game. Adam Gase earlier this year had just talked about how he's enjoyed connecting with you the last couple years. Maybe I think he said at the combine, and he actually said he loves some of your stories, that you're funny. What has that connection sort of been like for you with Adam in recent years?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of respect for Adam. I think he's a very good coach. He's always, been tough to coach against. He's always, made things difficult on our defense. It goes back to, Josh in Denver, and so, known each other for a while through, mutual connection there. But I think he's done an excellent job. I thought he did a good job with Miami. I think he did a good job with the Jets. He's, as I said, a coach I have a lot of respect for, and it gives us a lot of problems. And it was a tough coach to coach against. So that's really the way I feel about him.
Next question, Chris Ryan, followed by Evan Lazar.
Hey, Bill. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Chris.
Wanted to ask you about the Jets and what you've seen from them the last couple of weeks. Obviously, they hadn't had a lot of success prior to these 2 weeks. What has changed with them, in your view?
Well, they played pretty competitively, a good part of the year. So I would say they've been, offensively, things have, they've made a lot of progress in terms of consistency. They've shown certainly good flashes throughout the year in all areas of the game, and they certainly showed it against us down there, throwing the ball. But Darnold's come in there the last couple of weeks and has played pretty error-free. They've had a good competitive running game, and the receivers have been productive. Starting with Crowder, of course, and Berrios has been productive for them. Mims and Perryman, are explosive and have a lot of big play ability. Hernan started to come on now. He's played all year, but he's come on in the passing game as well with some good production. And P. Ryan missed about, I forget, 4 games or whatever it was with a high ankle, but he's back now. So their skill players they're pretty well balanced. They're productive across the board. Darnold's back in the lineup. Looks like he's gained some confidence, and their level of execution is has improved. And then defensively, this is a pretty disruptive team. Especially in the running game, at the top of the league in negative runs, and they don't give up a lot of big plays. They're a good tackling team, and they have good team speed, especially at the linebacker and position. They pursue hard. Their defensive ends are inside linebackers. So even guys that get through the hole, it's usually a fairly short gain, and then they offset that with a lot of negative plays. So. They're a good kick blocking team, both field goals and punts. Berrios has had a solid year as a punt returner. And they're pretty solid coverage team, big leg punter, and so they've improved all the way through the year in all 3 phases, and played pretty consistently over the last month of the season. Could easily beat the Raiders. Then obviously, beat a 9-4 Rams team and a 10-4 Browns team. So, there's they're gaining confidence, and you can see that their improvement as a team is definitely trending in the right direction. Again, I think that's a real credit to Coach Gase and his staff for the way that they've continued to help the team improve and to the players. They've played pretty good football here last few weeks.
Also wanted to ask you what the season has been like, for you personally. Some of your players, Josh, yesterday were talking about, the challenges of this season, whether it's the COVID environment, whether it's on the field, obviously the situation with James White, some of the injuries you've had. How would you categorize the way this season has affected you personally?
Yeah, I don't know. It's for me, it's really pretty week to week. You deal with whatever the situation is that week and try to maximize it, and be ready to go. On Sunday or Monday, whenever the game is. But that's what this week is, and honestly, that's pretty much what every week is. There's challenges every week. There's challenges every year. So try to address those challenges, meet them, and figure out what the best way to deal with them is.
Thanks. Next question, Evan Lazar, followed by Mark Daniels.
Hey, Coach, I just want to ask you about Juwan Williams and just your impressions of him this season, and if you think he's a player that could play a bigger role for you guys moving forward.
Well, look, Juwan's role will be determined by Juwan, just like it is with every player. But I think he has a lot of things going for him, and he's established a pretty solid role for us in the kicking game, and defensively he's shown the ability to do some things both inside and outside. It's a position overall that we have pretty good depth in terms of our safeties and corners, overall secondary. So it's a very competitive group of players. But he's certainly held his own in there and shown that he has a solid role for our team. Whether that role increases or decreases will really be determined by him and his performance. Same as everybody else.
Next question, Mark Daniels, followed by Jim McBride.
Hey, Bill. I wanted to ask you about a transaction the team made last week when you guys signed Roberto Aguayo to the practice squad. Obviously, a unique situation to have 3 kickers on the team and 2 on the practice squad. And we all know Roberto's history in the league. Just what did you see from him that made you want to bring him in the building?
Well, I mean, he's a pretty impressive guy. So we wanted to work with him. So we'll work with him here and see how it goes.
And I also wanted to ask you about Michael Owenu. I mean, he's been pretty impressive this year, and it seems like he's having a little bit of success over at right tackle. For someone who came into the league playing mainly guard, does what he's putting on the field this year, do you think that makes him a tackle in the future? Is essentially what I'm trying to ask. Do you think Mike's future is at the end at tackle, or will you look at him maybe at guard in the offseason?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's something we'll have to take a long, hard look at. This year, putting him at tackle was kind of our way to try to get our best players on the field. With Isaiah and so forth. Now, again, every situation is a little bit different. So what it'll be next year, I don't know. I think there's always, anytime you get into that, you can say, okay, you try to get your best players on the field, but sometimes that's playing somebody out of position, and is that the best way to go? So I think he's shown, maybe a little bit surprisingly to us and him, his ability to play tackle. Again, because as you mentioned, that's something he really hasn't done. And so that's it's a great credit to him, and it certainly increases his value to our team. And we'll have to take a look at what's best for him, what's best for the team. And honestly, the improvements he's made at tackle, there's probably a discussion as to, how much difference is there between guard and tackle in his play, and and so forth. So, it's been an opportunity that I would say we didn't anticipate at the start of the year, or even when we drafted him. We thought that he would be, compete for the third guard position, behind Joe and Shaq, and it's turned into something different than that. So we'll see if we go back to the original plan or whether we don't. I mean, this is similar to when we drafted Seymour in the first year he played nose, and then he went back to defensive end, and we drafted Will Fork in the first year he played defensive end, and then he went back to nose, and we drafted Solder, and he played right tackle, and then he eventually moved back to left tackle where we drafted him, or where we thought we were drafting him for. So, sometimes that first and second year is maybe a little different than the original plan, and sometimes maybe the original plan is you end up back there, anyway, and sometimes you don't. So we'll just have to take a look at that here at the end of the season and see where things are next year, and have some kind of a plan. Maybe it's some kind of combination of both. I don't know, but he's opened a lot of doors and opportunities for himself, and we'll see how that fits into our team concept.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next question, Jim McBride, followed by Dan Roach.
Good morning, Coach. Wanted to ask you about J.J. Taylor and what you've seen from him, a guy that came into camp at a position that was pretty deep, but was still able to carve out a role for himself.
Yeah, J.J. earned a spot on the roster through his play in practice. Again, no preseason games this year, so it's a little hard to evaluate, and that's a tough position for a running back when you don't see him get contact or get tackled. You see the run skills, but you don't see the rest of the play very often, and until you get into a game situation, and then that's really the defining part of the job. So again, he's done a good job of coming in, earning a spot, earning some playing time, earning some opportunities. He's also worked some as a kick returner. We worked him back there a little bit earlier in the year. So, he's a guy that's got a future. If he can continue to improve and, do things, in some of the areas that maybe he hasn't been asked to do as much in, things like pass protection, route running, and so forth. This is different, but in some ways similar to last year, where Damian was inactive for most of the year, didn't get a lot of opportunity, and then this year when those opportunities came, A, he was a better player, he was further along, and B, he was productive with those opportunities. Again, a lot of question marks about the depth we had at running back, and why do you need another one and all that, and I'm glad we have Damian Harris, and I'm glad we have J.J. Taylor. So we'll see how that progresses going forward. But the two guys really that stood out in camp and made an impact from where they were at the start of camp to where they were at the start of the season were Miles and J.J. And they both contributed for us during the year, and we'll see how it goes going forward.
Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
And the last two questions will be Dan Roach and Phil Perry.
Morning, Bill. Just to
Yeah.
kind of follow up what you've been talking about with even Miles and JJ and Mike and Josh, how important, you've often talked about how important the jump is from year one to year two for these players, but how important is year one to year two from an evaluation standpoint for you and your coaching staff to have a better feel for them now that you've had them under your belt for a year now, where they may fit better on the roster as you go forward? How important is that concept for you as you've seen over the years?
Yeah, well, anytime you have more information, I think it's an advantage in the decision-making process. And, we know a lot more now, and in some respects, a player's development can be influenced by his starting point. So, where you put the player to start with, and that may be based on need, it may be based on the skills that you think he has, but maybe you haven't seen all of his skills yet. And then as that evolves, then maybe that affects or changes your decision or what his role is on the team. So it certainly helps as coaches to have more information, and it helps to be able to see those players in game situations, not just in practice, but also in game situations to, again, have a better idea of how comfortable they are in those roles and how it'll all play out. And I'd say with, sometimes the complexity of what we do, when multiple positions are involved, sometimes that, has it could slow a younger player down a little bit trying to, understand everything. And, but then usually at some point when it all falls into place, then it's okay and everybody's pretty comfortable with it. But sometimes it can be initially a little bit of a hurdle, to get through. And you put Duggar in that category too. He's played in the deep part of the field. He's played in kind of traditional safety roles, and he's also played in some linebacker type roles and positions. So similar to Uche, some different responsibilities, for a younger player without a lot of experience, even at a Division I school there in Duggar's case. So those things are all things that, we've learned, and going forward, I think we'll be able to do a better job of, identifying and teaching them, how they'll be able to help us the most. And, in some cases, we probably over taught them or expanded their role to maybe a place where either it turned out we didn't really need it, or it just added to the volume of things they needed to get, and we can trim that back a little bit and be more efficient with it.
And last question, Phil Perry.
Hey, Bill, wanted to ask you about Sam Darnold. You mentioned a little bit earlier that lately he's, been playing basically error-free. And I just wanted to ask you, obviously it seemed as though the league thought pretty highly of his ability level a few years ago. Coming out of the draft, he goes number 3 overall. Has he shown you, in your opinion, the ability level that the league seemed to think that he had when he was taken that high a couple years ago?
I think he's got the ability to make all the throws. He can throw the ball down the field and intermediate throws. There are plenty of examples of him going through a read progression, 1, 2, 3 type of progression, high to low, inside, outside to inside. Man to zone from one side of the field to the other based on what the coverage is, so forth, blitzes. So. Yeah, I think he's shown the ability to to do everything. The consistency is, has looked better in recent weeks. So yeah, I don't think there's any shortage of talent there and playmaking ability. We saw him run. We saw him run for 50-yard touchdown or whatever it was against the Broncos. So. He's an athletic guy that has great size and big arms, hard to tackle in the pocket. It's good prospect, and he's being well coached. I know he's getting good coaching and has a good system that works through the quarterback. Adams always had an offensive system that really gave the quarterbacks all the opportunities to have tools that they need to be successful. So. I don't think you could have anybody, better coaching him than where he's at. So he's progressing, and as you expect he would.
And Bill, he's a pretty young guy. I think he's still 23 years old. Obviously, there's so much that goes into that position. He was really young when he came into the league. Do you feel like that has to factor into the timeline developmentally? Does a young player at that spot just need a little bit more time maybe to get to where he needs to be?
Yeah, I don't know. It's, without working directly with players, it's hard to, those are hard questions to answer, Phil. Just, you know, each player learns at different rates. They learn at sometimes with different teaching tools. And I think until you actually work, closely with any individual, you don't really know the answer to those questions, and until you've been through, enough situations, meetings, practices, walkthroughs, corrections, in games where things happen, quickly, and sideline adjustments and audibles, and there's 1,000 things. So you really need to develop that relationship with the individual player, and especially at that position. I'd say all the guys I've ever coached there, from Cleveland to here, regardless of whether they were whatever position they were on the depth chart, I'd say it's a little bit different for all of them. Not in a bad way. It's just we're all different.
Got it. Thank you.
Coach. Thank you, Coach. Thanks for the time. Thanks, everyone.
Order ahead on the Dunkin' app to get running on game day. Whether you're a Patriots fan or a Dunkin' fan.
Yes.
DD Perks members get a $1 medium hot or iced coffee when you order from the app on Patriots game day.
In New England, we are resilient. It takes hard work to earn respect. Sometimes it takes decades. And it always takes someone being on your side.
For over 60 years, this team has transformed itself into a championship organization. For over 160 years, our team has demonstrated a similar mentality. There are no days off. Our front lines are fortified by people who sacrifice individuality for the team. Our shelves are also stocked with the best quality products and ingredients. Our team members know their roles. We're proud to do our jobs. Shaw's, the official supermarket of the 6-time champion New England Patriots.
My Caleb sofa and love seat. With Bob's discount, you get both pieces for just $7.99.
$7.99? Are you joking?
Do I look like I'm joking?
Yes. You look like you're joking.
I'm serious.
Cool.
Get Bob's discount!
Order ahead on the Dunkin' app to get running on game day. Whether you're a Patriots fan or a Dunkin' fan.
Yes.
DD Perks members get a $1 medium hot or iced coffee when you order from the app on Patriots game day.
In New England, we are resilient. It takes hard work to earn